We find ourselves before one of the most electrifying games in chess history, played in Los Angeles on April 11, 1933. José Raúl Capablanca, the third world champion known for his crystalline and technical style, gifted us here with a masterpiece of combinatorial fantasy that contradicts the common perception of his positional play. His opponent, Herman Steiner, a strong American master, would become witness and victim to one of the most beautiful combinations ever executed on the chessboard.
e4, e5.
Both players occupy the center with their king pawns, declaring their intentions to fight for the heart of the board from the very first moment. This is the oldest and most fundamental opening in chess, one that all the great masters have employed throughout the centuries.
Knight f3.
White develops the knight, attacking black's central pawn.
Knight c6.
Black responds naturally, defending with the queenside knight while simultaneously developing. Here we see the fundamental principle of opening play, developing pieces with tempo, that is, with built-in threats.
Knight c3. Knight f6.
We enter the territory of the four knights opening, one of the most symmetrical and balanced in the chess repertoire. Both sides have developed their knights to ideal squares, controlling the center and preparing castling. The symmetry is perfect at this moment.
Bishop b5.
Capablanca chooses the Spanish variation within the four knights opening. The white bishop pressures c6, indirectly threatening the e5 pawn.
Bishop b4.
Steiner responds with the same mirror idea, pinning the knight on c3 against the white king. This is an interesting decision that maintains the symmetrical tension.
Short castling. Short castling.
Both players castle kingside, placing their monarchs in relative safety. This moment is crucial. The kings are protected, the rooks will soon enter play, and the strategic battle for the center and flanks begins.
d3.
Capablanca consolidates his center with d3, preparing the development of his light-squared bishop and maintaining flexibility in his pawn structure.
d6.
Steiner mirrors with the same idea. Both players are building solid structures, unhurried about premature complications.
Bishop g5.
Here the imbalance begins. Capablanca develops his bishop to g5, pinning the knight on f6 against the black queen. This is a typical move in the Spanish, exerting pressure on the key defender of the e5 pawn.
Bishop takes c3.
Steiner decides to eliminate the knight on c3, breaking the symmetry and accepting doubled white pawns.
B takes c3.
Capablanca recaptures with the pawn, and although his structure is doubled, he obtains important compensation. The c3 pawn controls central squares, and the b file is semi-open for his rook.
Knight e7.
Steiner regroups his knight to a 7, a less active square but one that avoids troublesome tactical threats on f6.
Knight h4.
A profound and ambitious move. Capablanca isn't satisfied with a standard position. The knight goes to h4 with clear plans. To jump to f5, this maneuver requires precise calculation because the knight is temporarily on the rim.
c6.
Steiner attacks the Spanish bishop, forcing it to make a decision.
Bishop c4.
Capablanca retreats to c4, an excellent square from which the bishop aims at the weak point f7 and maintains diagonal pressure.
Bishop e6.
This is the mistake that marks the point of no return. Steiner develops his bishop to e6, apparently natural, but commits a grave positional sin. He blocks his own e-pawn and allows Capablanca to execute a devastating combination.
Bishop takes f6.
Capablanca initiates the demolition. This exchange isn't casual. It eliminates black's best defender of the king and forces a fatal weakening of the pawn structure. When you recapture with the g-pawn, the king will be critically exposed.
G takes f6.
Steiner has no choice. He must recapture, and doing so with the g-pawn opens lines against his own king.
Bishop takes e6.
Capablanca continues the exchanges. He eliminates the bishop on e6, forcing the f-pawn to capture and become doubled.
F takes e6.
Now observe the black king's situation. It's on g8, surrounded by doubled pawns on e6 and f6 with the g-file semi-open. It's an invitation to attack.
Queen g4 check.
The first check. And what a check! The white queen leaps into attack with tempo, forcing the black king to make a difficult decision. This move has multiple threats. It attacks the e6 pawn and threatens devastating invasions. The king must move.
King f7.
Steiner brings his king to the center toward f7. It's the only move since staying on g8 would allow perpetual checks or worse. But now the king is dangerously centralized, precisely when white's pieces are prepared for the final assault.
f4.
Capablanca opens more lines. The f-pawn advances, threatening to destroy the e5 pawn, black's last defensive bastion. This move also prepares potential threats along the f-file, where soon the white rook will enter with devastating effect.
Rook g8.
This is Steiner's second critical error. He attempts to defend along the g-file, but this move is too passive and doesn't address the real threats. It was absolutely necessary to play queen b6 check, attempting to create counterplay, though white maintains a decisive advantage. By moving the rook to g8, Steiner places his own piece where it will be vulnerable to future tactics.
Queen h5 check.
Capablanca adjusts the harassment. The queen jumps to h5 with check, maintaining maximum pressure. Each check forces black into obligatory responses, with no time to organize defenses.
King g7.
The king returns to g7, trying to find some refuge, but the position is already compromised beyond salvation.
F takes e5.
Capablanca captures the e5 pawn, opening lines and eliminating defenders.
D takes e5.
Steiner must recapture with the d-pawn, and now the position is completely open for the final assault of white's pieces.
Rook takes f6.
The first exchange sacrifice. Capablanca gives up his rook for a mere pawn, a decision that seems like madness but is computationally perfect. This is the type of sacrifice that separates geniuses from mere mortals. It requires visualizing the entire forced continuation to the final mate.
King takes f6.
Steiner accepts the material. Declining the sacrifice with king f7 only postpones the inevitable, as white has multiple devastating threats.
Rook f1 check.
The rook from a1 enters the attack with tempo. This check forces black to interpose something or move the king. Capablanca gives no respite. Every move is a mortal threat.
Knight f5.
Steiner blocks with his knight, the only piece that can interpose. But this knight is doomed.
Knight takes f5.
Capablanca captures the knight, and Steiner must recapture.
E takes f5.
Observe that the e6 pawn captures on f5, and now the king is completely naked, surrounded by white's attacking pieces.
Rook takes f5 check.
The white rook captures the pawn with check, and the king must flee.
King e7.
It goes to e7, advancing deeper into the board, where it will be hunted mercilessly.
Queen f7 check.
The queen joins the hunt, and now the black king is completely lost. There are no safe squares.
King d6.
The king attempts to escape toward the center of the board, toward d6. It's a desperate flight, but there's no salvation.
Rook f6 check.
Another devastating check. The rook jumps to f6, cutting off the king's escape routes and forcing it toward the clutches of the mating net.
King c5.
The king reaches c5, an incredible odyssey from g8, but here it finds its tomb.
Queen takes b7.
The immediate threats are queen takes c6 or queen b4, checkmate.
Queen b6.
Steiner attempts to block the mate threats by offering a queen trade, but it's insufficient.
Rook takes c6 check.
The second rook sacrifice. Capablanca gives up his last rook, capturing the c6 pawn with check. This is the final blow, the sacrificial piece that forces mate.
Queen takes c6.
Steiner accepts, capturing the rook with his queen. It is a terrible error that accelerates mate in one. Better was king b5 with more resistance, although white's advantage is decisive.
Queen b4 checkmate.
The white queen jumps to b4, delivering the definitive mate. The black king has no escape, and there's no black piece that can interpose or capture the queen. It's a mate of pure geometric beauty. This game is considered Capablanca's most brilliant because it shows a little-known aspect of his genius, his capacity for fantastic combinatorial play. Here, Capablanca demonstrated that he could also sacrifice with the audacity of Tal or the precision of Alekhine.